It's here, it's here. It's finally arrived. It's finally arrived. I've gone and bought a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. But you already knew that because you've clicked on the video after all. I know what you might be thinking. Why have you bought a 4K when there's already an upgrade out, the 6K? And will I go on to regret that decision? Good question. Oi oi, what's happening? My name's Chris, aka Snackophagus, and thanks for watching. I actually bought this camera back in January. I went on the internet, I saw it there was a good deal, it said it was in stock, so I clicked order. Then a few days later I get a message from them saying that was a mistake, it's not actually in stock, they can't deliver it for a while. So after lots of to and fro and back and forwards, many emails, threatening to cancel the credit card order, eventually they've sent it out and I've finally received it. That was with a store that I'd not used before, so there's probably a little lesson in there. Anyway, picking a 4K camera when there's already an upgraded 6K camera out there might not seem like a good decision. So I thought I'd go over some of the decision-making process and why I came to the conclusion that the 4K is probably better for me, and hopefully if you're in a similar situation trying to decide between these two cameras, this video might help you make your mind up. Reason number one is I just don't need 6K. 6K is massive, and I mean massive. 4K is about 8 million pixels on the sensor, and 6K is 19 million pixels. As you can probably work out if your maths is anywhere near good, that's double the amount of pixels, and therefore double the amount of information that you're going to have to deal with, and double the amount of hard drive space or card space you're going to need to be able to deal with that amount of information. A 250 gig hard drive is going to last you about 150 minutes shooting in 4K, as opposed to if you're shooting in 6K, it's going to last you only 65 minutes, and that's according to Blackmagic's own website. You're going to get a little bit more than double the space if you're going to shoot in 4K. There are of course advantages of shooting in 6K over 4K. For example, you can down res that 6K into 4K and get a much nicer looking 4K image. Or you can place the 6K on a 4K timeline and have the ability to zoom in and out, or pan, or just recompose the image, crop in. But with 99% of the stuff that I shoot only needed to be delivered in HD, I already have those options with 4K. I can put 4K on the timeline in a HD timeline and have those abilities to zoom in and out and recompose anyway. So for me, it's not worth the extra hard drive space and the extra cost that comes with that to work in a 6K data flow rather than a 4K data flow. There's not many places that need 4K at the moment. Most people still don't have a 4K television. I don't know anyone who has a 6K television, and I imagine they'll probably bounce past 6K anyway onto 8K. So for me, it's not the right time to go into 6K market. Number two is crop factor. The Blackmagic 6K has a APS-C sensor, and the Blackmagic 4K has a micro four thirds sensor. The APS-C sensor in the 6K camera is much closer to the look of feature films, as it's close to the Super 35mm film stock that they shoot their movies in. It also gives you the ability to get a shallower depth of field with a higher f-stop. However, if you pair up the Blackmagic 4K with a Metabone speed booster, you can reduce the crop on there to 1.4 times. Now that's actually less of a crop than the Blackmagic 6K has at the moment. You can't get a Metabone speed booster for the 6K at the moment. It's not possible for them to make one to fit on there. Maybe science will find a way around that in the future, but at the moment you can't do that. So the 4K, you can reduce the crop with a speed booster down to 1.4, and on the 6K it's 1.5. Both of them are compared to the full frame 35mm. So both of them are very similar. Both of them are going to be able to get that shallow depth of field or a similar shallow depth of field to each other, and both of them are going to be close to the feature film look that a lot of people want to get when they're trying to shoot cinematic images with this type of cinema camera. Also, you might want to consider, if you're shooting in HD, the fact that the 6K does a windowed HD. That means it punches in on the sensor. It doesn't use the whole of the sensor, whereas the 4K does use the whole of the sensor. So you actually get a bigger HD image in the 4K camera than you do in the 6K camera, and that's not even with the speed booster. Once you add the speed booster in, you're getting a much bigger HD image on the 4K camera over the 6K camera. So if you want to work in HD, if you do a lot of work in HD, or you want to use a HD timeline or whatever, you might be better off considering the 4K over the 6K. Number 3 on the list is features. Now you might be thinking, what features does the 4K have over the 6K? Isn't the 6K an update to the 4K? Doesn't it have more features? Well, a better way of looking at this question could be, what features does the 6K have apart from resolution and sensor size over the 4K? Both these cameras shoot with 13 stops of dynamic range, both shoot raw video, both shoot ProRes, both shoot a maximum frame rate of 120 frames per second in HD, and both have dual native ISOs. The 6K has that bigger sensor that lets you get a shallower depth of field much easier, but as I explained, the Metabone speed booster takes care of that problem, so really the advantage is in resolution, and as I said earlier, resolution is not that important to me personally. Number 4 is price. You can pick up the Blackmagic 4K along with the Metabone speed booster for 1,600 quid. That's over £600 cheaper than the 6K version. Allow myself to interrupt myself at this point because as I was editing this video, Blackmagic have gone and announced a price reduction on the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K. As you can see from this article here on Cinema 5D, they've reduced the price of the camera by over $500, which is quite a significant reduction, bringing the price of the camera down to just under $2,000. Now, I've had a little look to see if they've changed the price here in the UK, and surprise, surprise, they haven't. We always get ripped off with camera equipment in this country for some reason. But in America, you can get yourself $500 off. So the point that I was making just now about the price of this camera isn't quite as great a point as it once was. However, the 4K is still cheaper. The 4K there is at $1,295. So there still is a difference in price. It just wasn't as significant as it once was when I was filming this video. Right, back to the rest of the video. That gives you £600 to put towards accessories. You're going to want to consider a battery solution. The batteries in this camera have a terrible reputation, so you're going to either need a load more extra batteries, or you're going to need something like a V-mount battery to be able to power the camera for an extended period of time. You might also want to consider getting some better memory cards or even an external hard drive, something like the Samsung T5 SSD, maybe even a microphone if you don't have one, or some ND filters if you don't have them, and you might need a cage to be able to mount all this stuff too. Now you're going to need a lot of those same things with the 6K, but with the 4K you have the saving of that extra money to go towards those accessories. Alternatively, you might want to blow all that cash on a new lens, something like the Sigma 18 to 35mm f1.8, which is incredibly popular with these cameras. And funny enough, that lens comes in at just under £600. How convenient. Now, there isn't a number 5 on the list, but if there was, it would probably be along the lines of, I just wanted to buy another camera. I like buying cameras, don't judge me for it. There's worse things that I could do with my money. There's worse things you could do with your money. So, yeah, I just wanted to buy one. Anyway, did I make the right decision picking up a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K in 2020? I think personally, compared to the 6K model, that it's a better fit for me. It might not be for you, so I don't regret that aspect of it, but Blackmagic Design has a reputation for bringing out new cameras every single year. So in a couple of weeks' time, they might bring out a super duper camera, and I'll be really disappointed that I parted with my money and I didn't save it and buy that future camera. Only time will tell. If you like this video, consider doing me a favour and hitting the thumbs up button, or alternatively, even better, hitting the subscribe button. I'm off to see how this camera works, see if I can get the best out of it, what the picture quality's like. See you in the next one. Thanks for watching.